Karibu kwenye matangazo ya maisha.
So the controversial question that I do want to, ask is, do people with advanced degrees, are they better and smarter than people with no degrees? Or maybe just a bachelor's? Now by advanced degrees, I mean masters, Ph.Ds, J.Ds, which is like a law degree, M.Ds, which is, the medical field. Are these people better than the people without degrees? Now you're probably asking, well, CJ, why are you so special? And how can you actually answer this question? How can you give these claims and then provide evidence? Well, I've been pretty much on both sides of the spectrum of it, right? My parents come from poverty. My parents essentially come from the hood. So I know a thing or two about it, and I've been around people in the hood, and I've had private conversations with them. On the flip side, I've also been in the offices of judges, politicians, assemblymen. I've been in the office with people with Ph.D.s, right? Spoken to doctors and really been able to analyze them. So a lot of you don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to squash it and let you know. The answer to this question is absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're asking me if people with advanced degrees are better and smarter and ultimately more secure than people without degrees, I would have to disagree wholeheartedly. I've been in the room with people getting their master's degrees. I've been in the room with people with their PhDs. And there's three big major things that I've noticed with them that are no different from people without degrees. That piece of paper doesn't restrain you from having these three negative qualities. And these three negative qualities are entitlement, insecure, and ignorant. And I can argue that these people with these quote unquote advanced degrees and this advanced knowledge, this higher education, those three qualities, I can actually argue and give evidence that they are worse than the people in the streets. So rather than running my mouth and giving you theories, why not give you a couple of examples, right? I'll give you 3 examples. The first example, when I was in undergrad, this is when I first started realizing these people with PhDs. Because mind you, when we're kids and we think about this situation of people with PhDs and higher degrees and doctors and lawyers, we put them on a pedestal, thinking that, they work so hard and this and that. And I'm not saying they didn't work hard, but this is where this entitlement starts to come into play. So this first example, I was an undergraduate talking to a professor with a PhD, had a tenure and all that stuff, right? And we have this conversation regarding Adolf Hitler, right? It wasn't a situation where neither of us were supporting him, but more so of a situation where, we were discussing the situation of World War II. And by this time now, I'm like doing my individual research. Like, I don't trust textbooks. I don't trust history books. Right? So I'm doing my own research on Hitler, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand 1 or 2 things that I've never been taught in school, because the narrative is what? This guy's a bad guy, right? So as I'm discussing this with this professor, we're discussing World War II, he brings up the claim of, well, Hitler was a racist and he wanted to support the Aryan race. And immediately I questioned this professor. I said, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, like that's That's the truth. Here's the thing with that. As I've come into this conclusion, this standpoint, and this goes into the part of ignorance, right? If Hitler was for the Aryan race, these quote unquote blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, that doesn't even make sense. It's not logical. Why? Hitler had black hair. So the whole notion of blonde hair, that's out. Right? Now I believe he did have blue eyes. But here's my thing. If Hitler is a racist like you all claim, then why did he quote unquote massacre a set of people with his same skin color? Now, I've talked about this previously, but European Jews have the same exact skin color as Hitler. Why didn't Hitler go to Africa and eradicate people that look like me? I've yet to find the answer to this. So the whole aspect and this narrative of Hitler being racist needs to be in question. And the fact that someone with a Ph.D. feels so confident to spew this narrative without any significant evidence it's actually kind of scary. Right? That's example one. That shows a bit of ignorance and honestly a lack of research. Now, this next example is with an honorable judge. I interned for a courthouse a few years back, and part of my job was to go into the judge's offices and count up the books, right? So inventory, updating the books, blah, blah, blah. Through this time, I've actually been able to experience a couple of conversations with a couple of judges. Very nice people, for the most part. For the most part. Some of them are very nice, though. They're not all like how you see in the courtroom. They kind of change their demeanor as they leave the courtroom. On a side note, I did meet one judge. She was very nice. She was polite enough to ask me, what I wanted to do with my life, where I was headed. And I told her I was thinking about law school, but I think graduate school at this point was better. And, I told her I wanted to go into public policy. And she's like, that's a great decision. And out of her mouth, she said, don't go to law school. Don't be a lawyer. And that was her words. And I said, wow, that's, I was like, what's the reason for that? And she said, and I quote, it's not fulfilling. She wasn't happy about it. So that's kind of shows just a little bit of insecurity there of man, she's not happy with what she's doing. Making bricks load of money, right? 6 figures easy. But here she is telling me, don't go to law school. It's not fulfilling. So you can clearly see she does feel a sense of insecurity, and I really appreciated that conversation. So thank you. She drew me away from law school. But the judge that I actually do want to talk about, he's significant. This particular judge, I went in his office multiple times. And I remember seeing a constitution. He had a really dope constitution book. It was gold trimming, all that stuff. I'm not sure if it was real gold, but the kind of money he makes, it probably was. And when I complimented him on this Constitution book, I was like, yo, this is a really nice book. The first thing that came out of his mouth was the fact of, yeah, you'd be surprised how many judges don't know the Constitution. Don't know the Constitution. This is from a judge who do the gavel. He drops the gavel, telling me, an intern, about other judges who don't know the Constitution, but lock up people for life. It's insane. So this is where you get this entitlement feeling, this ignorance type of vibe, right? So another day, I think this was 2 separate days, I go into the same judge's office. We have a conversation. Here's where his entitlement, insecurity, and ignorance branches out. It comes out. We have a conversation about capitalism versus socialism. Now, mind you, this judge was also what do you call it, an adjunct professor, which is like a part-time professor. So he did that part-time. I think it was like summer work or whatever. But he's supporting capitalism, and I'm defending socialism, right? We get back and forth, we're going back and forth. Here's where I knew this man had no idea what he was talking about. And he was showing senses of insecurity. He's giving me an example on socialism. He says, well, some people work harder than others. And how would you feel? And this, I quote, how would you feel if a doctor made the same money as a trash man? Now, for starters, that's not socialism, where everybody's paid the same. I don't know where he got that theory from, but I've heard of that theory in the past. That's not the theory of socialism. So right away, I'm showing, okay, you're showing signs of insecurity because you believe you deserve more money than another person. And then you're showing a sense of entitlement because you feel you work harder than the next person. Well, what does work harder mean? You mean physically, mentally? What's work harder? So to the second point, that's not what socialism is. In a socialist society, the doctor still makes more than the trash man. But in socialist society, the tax brackets and the money that they attribute to the public are much greater and higher. So the doctor would have to attribute more taxes. That's socialism. You have to have a purity about you. Because anyone that disagrees with that concept of the doctor paying more taxes than the trash man, they're a capitalist. They want profits, and then they want them all, and they want to go buy bullshit with their profits. That's why they don't believe in socialism, because they're selfish. You have to be very unselfish in a socialist society, period. There's no if, and, or buts. So when he's telling me this, like, oh, how would you feel about... I'm like, number one, that's not socialism. And number two, if they're making difference of money, like, why do you want so much more money than the next man? How much money do you need? You're already a judge. I'm telling you, like, I'm being nice when I say these guys make $300,000 a year. I'm being nice. They could easily be making $500,000. How much money do you need? This is capitalism. Where you more money, vanity, vanity, vanity. This is a judge who sentences people to prison and doesn't even know what socialism is. Is in full support of capitalism. So right away, that's showing you big trouble. That these judges are putting people in prison and could be investing in the fucking prison that they're sending these people into to make more money. Now, that's not his situation. I don't know his private life. But I can assure you, I dominated that debate. You know what I mean? So that's a second example of these people with these quote unquote higher degrees feeling very entitled, like they're owed something. They're feeling very insecure about their money and their situation, thinking that they're better than the next person. Why is a doctor more important than a trash man? Do you not know about, biochemistry? Your trash. When your trash piles up, that gives off a certain odor, vibe, aura. It's disgusting. It's nasty. It actually affects your behavior in your household, the energy of your household. So the trash man is what's the word? Considerate enough to go ahead, put himself in harm's way and dump out your toxic waste. Yes, your toxic waste that slowly but surely kills you. And then goes home to his family in these dirty ass clothes, these musty ass clothes, puts them in the same washer as he puts his newborn baby's clothes in, and continues his the next day. Why are you better? The trash man, quote unquote, is saving people's lives as well, just like the doctor. If you really think about the concept of it. Taking out our waste. What would you do with your waste? What have you ever done with your waste? You've always thrown it in the trash and then thrown it in the dumpster. And then they take it for you. In the United States of America, you've never had to really dump off your own trash. So you have to commend those trash men. You're not better just because you're a judge or a doctor or a lawyer. You're not better. That's what I was telling you. They're not better and they're not smarter. This guy got schooled by an intern. You don't even know what socialism is. And that was a horrendous example of socialism. So I had to put it to him straight. This last example, I'm actually going to make this into a separate podcast because this one, she really pissed me off. This was at the graduate level. This is me in the room with people with their master's degrees. With their masters. So I'm associating myself with people getting their masters and people, professors with their Ph.D s, right? I asked the question to the professor, where did the English language come from? And how this started, we were talking about a certain speech of a politician. You know, politicians and their wordplay, they're very slick. So I'm aware of the English language. I read a lot. I know that it's used to manipulate people and the people's minds. That's why it's such a difficult language to learn. Because if you don't know it, you can trick somebody else. Right? So I asked this professor, where did the English language come from? That was it. Where did the English language come from? Listen to her response. And this is where I know she was being very conniving and facetious. She said the first part of her question, and I quote, came from, Germanic origins, right? Which is like the origin of Germany and all that stuff. English is a bastard language, so it's compiled of German, French, Latin, Greek, so forth, right? Arabic, everything, right? So that's her first part. Now, I'm not sure how much she knew about me personally by this time. She must have known a thing or two about me because now she's getting very condescending. And the second part of that answer is, oh, well, it's not like a bunch of people stood around a table and tried to create the language and manipulate it. She was telling me, it was progressing over time, which is partly true. But the fact that she says a bunch of men were not sitting around a table creating the language, that's very false. And what I'm saying she's false. She's wrong. Because there were men sitting around a table creating this language. So it's very condescending behavior that she was showing. And on top of that, she's absolutely incorrect. The English language is used to manipulate the people and to cause chaos and confusion, therefore causing obedience. If I'm wrong about the English language to where it wasn't created to manipulate the people and there wasn't specific people sitting around a table writing this language to confuse the people, well then let me share this with you. When I say the word here, which here am I talking about? Here. When I say the word plane, which plane am I talking about? When I say the word there, but, sun, for, pound, bat, fair, mean, and right, what am I talking about? You can't even decipher which word I'm talking about based off my sound. You have to write it down and see it in order to even interpret what I'm saying. So when these leaders and these politicians come up to you and they spew this information, these speeches and blah, 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 you're hearing one thing, but they mean another fucking thing. You hear one thing, but they mean another thing. They've tricked you. They have tricked you. So with this professor, who is head honcho of an entire graduate program, that's her responsibility. She oversees the entire fucking program. When she is ignorant enough to say something like that, it really puts into question, how smart are you really? How smart are y'all really? Some of you not very. Now, I'm not saying all people with PhDs are dumb or anything. That's not what I'm saying. Or all judges are dumb. I'm just saying, what was the question? Are they better than people without degrees? Are they smarter than people without degrees? The answer is no. I've been around some smart ass gangbangers, slick gangbangers that are able to commit crimes and never get caught. You got to be somewhat smart to get away with it. You got to know how to manipulate, just like a politician, just like a professor. So she was being very condescending and ignorant and trying to put me in a place of peasantry, if you will. Belittle me in front of the class. And here I am just showing your ass up. So to conclude this, because I'm going to get way deeper into that English language stuff. That needs a separate podcast. I want to keep this as short as possible. But to my point, no. People with advanced degrees are not better than people without degrees. It's all about your mental. How do you think? Your actions. What do you do? Because people with these PhDs and blah, 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 and these law degrees, they get a sense of entitlement. Like, oh, look, I worked so hard and now I deserve 6 figures. I deserve 7 figures. And they believe that because ultimately they're insecure with themselves. They owe tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of student loan debt, housing debt, car debt. They owe all these things because they have a job. So they acquire all these things and get themselves entrapped in debt. Now they're insecure. Not only are they entitled, now they're insecure. And so now that entitlement and then insecurity leads them where? Living an ignorant, peasant, slave-like lifestyle. So who's the real smart ones? The ones attending college or not attending college? Well, I just proved my damn point. So with that said, be well, be nice to people. Peace.